Welcome back, everyone. Michelle, can you please read the sunshine law?
This is a regular meeting of the Mayor and Council of the Borough of Keyport, Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. Let the minutes show that adequate notice of this meeting as required by Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, has been provided by the annual notice, which has been posted on the bulletin board filed with the Borough Clerk, and has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Independent, the Star Ledger, and the Two River Times.
Great, thank you. Can you please do roll call?
Mayor Kennedy.
Here.
Council President McNamara.
Here.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Here.
Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
Councilmember Davidson.
Here.
Councilmember Aranio.
Here.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Everyone, please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone, so please remain standing for a moment of silence of your choosing. Thank you. We'll start the meeting with committee reports. Councilmember Pacheco.
Sorry, take a sip. I'll start with Harbor Commission. So we had a meeting on yesterday. We discussed the no wake buoys. There will actually be a meeting this weekend with some people from State Police and Keyport Police Department to discuss. We spoke about our boat ramp fee recommendations, and we have some recommendations to raise the fees. It'll still be less expensive than Atlantic Highlands and Belmar. I'll get those to you guys so we can get the ball rolling on that. Porta potties. We've discussed the enclosures are damaged and are in need of repair. We also had discussions about removing them by April 1st and getting back on our cadence where we remove them like kind of around the tree lighting and then put them back up in the spring. We also had a discussion about the boathouse strip. We just wanted to confirm if the cameras were working in the boathouse. I should have added that to my list today and I didn't.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the cameras in the boathouse.
We also wanted to confirm about the beach cleanup, the shared services with Union Beach. Will that be in effect for the summer as well?
I expect it will.
Perfect. And then we had a recommendation come out of the Harbor Commission regarding the Osprey nest. The recommendation is to build the platform between the fishery and the senior building with the dome caps that were recommended by Mr. Lane put on the light fixture. The Harbor Commission does not think that this is a project that should be costing as much as it is, and recommends that we take that action. We can discuss that more during the thing. And going on to Municipal Alliance, the coordinator interviews are going to begin this week. We discussed programming, and the Keyport High School will be having a community wellness fair on Thursday the 17th at 5:30. Amongst lots of the services that will be there, they're actually having Optical Academy, which is offering discounted eye exams and glasses. So if you go to the high school, to the website, they'll have a link for RSVPing for that. Redevelopment, we've been trying to make some meetings with some entities that have discussed ways to possibly cap the landfill at Air Marine. We're still kind of waiting to see when we'll be meeting with them. So hopefully I'll have a report for you for the next report. That's my minutes for the Harbor Commission. And then I just have the police stats, and I know the chief has an update. So this is as of January 31st, there were 1,062 calls for service. There's 58 case files. I thought this was important considering what you'll be bringing out. There's actually 5 stolen motor vehicles, something to be on the lookout for. 99 traffic stops, 80 summonses issued. And then I know the chief has a report, so I'm gonna, if it's okay, turn it over to her real quick.
Now we're under Diane's report, so we'll do the Diane's report.
Okay. That's it for me.
Can I just ask a question? You mentioned about the community wellness.
Yeah.
Do we did you say that's sponsored also by Municipal Alliance?
We will be there, I wouldn't say that we were.
Got it, okay, thank you. Councilmember McDermott?
Thank you, Mayor. Regarding environmental commission, I want to thank everyone who volunteered this past Saturday. We were finally able to successfully plant the trees that were all volunteered by Keyport. And we're able to repair the gap between the ramp and where the overlook is. So it was nice. And then also the back end where there was a big significant just hole because the dunes are not coming over the dunes. So again, we had about, I think they had about 30 or 40 trees on top of the KBBC one. So it was a very successful event. And stuff is on the borough website for that, regarding the pictures. The other thing with that is there's also going to be some punch list items like to order more fencing and signs. And I'll submit that officially through the borough administrator. And again, the goal is to, if anyone actually knows, the current fencing that's around the dunes has actually successfully been covered up. So now we just need to make sure that we protect it against people walking through it, things like that. And put it on top. So the other thing is considering, I know we have, I don't know if we still have it, but the shared services with Union Beach on cleaning the beaches. That was asked by the Environmental Commission if that's going to happen this year again.
I expect it.
Yeah, okay. So again, and there is actually an event that's happening in February on a Saturday that's not being done in cooperation with the Environmental Commission, but it's being done by another organization on the Keyport. They're actually the clean up Cedar Street Park and taking out plastics. So you can sign up independently on their website. But there will be the two annual beach sweep events that are done by the Environmental Commission. Will be done this year. They're planned there, and the mayor has kind of coordinated already communication to have recycle containers kept. So that's with that one. KBBC met, and the committees have worked on visual improvement initiatives, working on the stage and mini park area, town signs, and also this putting up signs in honor of Irish flags and American flags kind of alternating. To let you know about the initiative with the mini park and the town signs or signage, that would be a tentatively plan to work with NPP in a cooperative measure. So that was a request by the KBBC to kind of get the information. As we kind of come up with initial plans within an NPP, we'll communicate those, so we'll give up the initial plan. But it was always intended to be a cooperative effort between KBBC and NPP. Logistics and stuff like that will be planned out as it becomes available. And the mayor and I will coordinate those communications to KBBC through the NPP committee. And then the big event is the KBBC board did vote on the flags and also doing the decorations for the mini park for St. Patrick's Day. So I think there was two vendors that have been agreed upon, and those details have been kind of pushed over to the executive board to coordinate. But we should have a beautiful St. Patrick's Day parade in town with a potential photo booth with one vendor, and then the other vendor will go ahead and decorate the mini park, including the stage, so where the bands can perform and things like that. So it should be a beautiful day. That's what I have immediately. Oh, and then I think the budget was approved by KBBC, and that will be submitted, I think, for the March 1st meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Davidson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'll start with the construction department report and go through the numbers. The total UCC inspections for January were 127, building code were 29, electric 50, fire 14, mechanical 27, plumbing 7, and UCC violations issued were 1. We had 22 rental inspections, 14 house sales, 14 code enforcement violations, 34 property maintenance complaints were received, 3 landlord registrations, 3 vacant property registrations, 20 zoning applications, and 5 zoning violations. As you guys can see from the agenda tonight, we have a resolution to hire
a new part-time code enforcement officer, and so we're looking forward to him starting with us in the next week or so, I believe. Just a couple little notes, if anybody is curious about 25 Pershing. Per the conversation with the bank, the debris is going to be cleaned up by Friday, which is on the street, so somebody moved out and left a whole bunch of garbage there, so that is getting addressed. And then in regards to 162 2nd Street, the proper notices were issued, and the borough will take the next steps as, follow the proper process and procedures as they've been doing all along in regards to that property. In regards to planning board, we had our reorganization meeting on January 27th. We determined the officers for 2022 as well as our professionals. We set the calendar for 2022, and we also added additional meetings due to the influx of applications. So if there are extra meetings needed, we can get everybody in as necessary. If we don't need them, then we will not have the meetings, but everything will be properly noticed. The planning board subcommittee for cannabis was scheduled to meet tomorrow, and we're going to discuss the ordinance as it pertains to land use in the planning board. The discussion will then be communicated to the Borough Council Subcommittee for Cannabis, which will be further discussion for the entire governing body at a later date. In regards to the Parking Committee, we met via Zoom a few weeks ago, and we had a very in-depth and great discussion regarding the inconsistencies in the parking ordinances. We have scheduled to go back to those conversations, and again, we'll bring that back to the full governing body, and if necessary, the planning board for further discussion for future resolutions. And I believe that is all I have, aside from the fire bureau. As always, please maintain your smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, and be diligent with fire prevention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not diligent, sorry.
Thank you. Before we move on, Jay, can we just ask you to make a note to please make sure that the Beach Sweep program, with shared service program with Community Beach is ready to sweep for the next meeting, because as Councilmember Pacheco and Councilmember McDermott and Councilmember Davidson from DPW, I think we need to get ahead of the season on that. So,
Sure.
If we could actually have that confirmed for March, that would be great. Thank you. Councilmember McNamara.
Good evening, thank you. The senior center, I stopped by there recently. There was lots going on. They had some nursing students who were doing their community rotation, working with some of the members. There was an exercise class going on, a ping pong tournament, meet and greet with the new social worker. They're doing some homework there on maybe acquiring a smart board to put in the kitchen area. So that would be a nice tool for them. They have the grandpads. They could do little interactive classes. There was some preliminary conversation about partnering with Hazlitt for a Seniors Memorial Day barbecue in May at a picnic area in Hazlitt. As you know, our senior center includes residents from neighboring municipalities. So use of the skipper bus as a possible transportation option, given the shortage of drivers and availability through SCAT is being asked. So we're going to look into that. And I will get more details and include them in the next agenda for council's consideration. And in the interim, welcome any queries anybody has about that trip or anything else going on at the senior center. Recreation. It's going to happen again April 3rd. The Easter Bunny's going to drive around. I think we still need to submit an event form, but it was really enjoyed last year. And that would be the weekend before the Easter egg hunt, so it would help promote that. Let's see. Before this month is over, we expect to be opening up for reservations and sales for the Somerset Patriots game. That'll be on Sunday, May 22nd. It's a 1 o'clock in the afternoon game. We reserved 100 tickets, and I think it comes with a barbecue and all that kind of stuff. So that'll be fun. We've been looking into maybe some mini camps. There've been some early conversations that have been targeted to programming near the bay and water related, so that's for the summer. On the water, near the water, in the water, I mean, really just take advantage of the community that we live in. So we've got a couple things going on there. With the yacht club conversation and a couple of organizations and the county. 5K is already getting on Nancy's radar. I mean, she's ready to go. There is some conversation about maybe looking at changing the route. We'll have further conversation about that because they're going to be doing the construction over the bridge, and not sure if that really makes sense, not knowing what stage the work will be at, although the bridge will be open through all the construction. If it's just one lane each way instead of two, I don't know if that's the way to go. The ball fields, the school has already reached out regarding a permit application, and the Recreation Committee has recommended for the other rentals that we leave the fees the same for this year. Cannabis. So as you all know, the cannabis, the ordinance was passed in November, and in the middle of January, the subcommittee was created. And a reminder to everybody, the state has not yet opened up the application process for retail dispensary establishments. They did open up for cultivation in December. The current expectation is that the Regulatory Commission will open the process on March 15th, and municipalities to date have not received much guidance on the process or forms from the state or the League of Municipalities. Note, though, that the state will not be limiting the number of licenses for the retail dispensaries. That was just the cultivation they limited. The subcommittee had a meeting yesterday during which we discussed the need for application and checklist that outlines the borough process. A draft of the application is being worked on, and the committee will be meeting next week to review it. We have committee members registered for the 4-hour New Jersey League of Municipality webinar, which will be covering municipal cannabis law. That's being held this Friday. The committee had gotten information from Councilmember Davidson regarding the planning board's thoughts regarding the regarding the ordinance. She's the council appointee for the planning board. And the adoption had occurred without the input from the planning board that we were hoping to have. So we're taking a look at the things that came up, and then again, you guys have a new committee for this year, so we look forward to getting feedback from you. The committee is requiring any interested parties to contact the borough clerk for the most current information regarding the process. As information about the process becomes available, it will be posted on the borough website under the new tab, Cannabis Licensing Information. We ask that any members of the governing body, as well as any employees of the borough that are contacted about the process, redirect those inquiries to the borough clerk. And then lastly, Green Team. The first meeting of the year put a few things from Environmental Commission on our radar. In terms of things that Sustainable Jersey might get us points for. Part of that was the dune grass. The other was wildlife. I think there's something with horseshoe crabs that might be going on. And we have some things coming up looking at composting and some other stuff like that. So Green Team meets again next week, and that's it.
Thank you. Councilman Mourinho?
Thank you. I'm going to talk about the MPP first. For the MPP, we have a lot of good things that are happening. For this year, we're looking at projects starting in March to repair the parking lots on Main Street, the decorative street signs, and the finishing area by the gazebo. All of this obviously is pending, council approval. The signage, they're requiring additional quotes for black decorative street signs and stop signs to complement the current lighting elements. Rough quotes for the MPP zone street signage came in. Guess it's $18,500 to $25,000, labor not included. We're still gathering additional quotes for labor to install the signs before anything's presented. The arches, new quotes will be gathered as there's been no response from the 2 previous vendors that had been approached. Parking, pedestrian improvements, we have
our budget. Pending council approval, the MPP team is prepared to proceed with the repairs to Main Street. Also, at the February monthly meeting, Keyport was the spotlight at town, where the presentation focused on the Keyport's how to do it best practices. This was intended to encourage the lend support of the 20 new NPP towns. For finance, we actually had our first meeting, but it was really just a preliminary. We're going to have our second meeting, which is tomorrow, and that's going to be more in depth, so I'll have more information. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pepperoni?
Thank you, Mayor. So for recycling, the 2022 flyers can be found on the Borough website, and you can pick up hard copies at the Senior Center, Borough Hall, and the library. So they're ready to go. For first aid, we spoke to, had a meeting with, not a meeting, but a couple emails with Kenny Crow. He gave us his equipment list for this upcoming year. Seems to be over 6 figures of requests and needs that he'd like to see happen. We'd have to sit down and see what we can make work for that. For the fire department, we're still working on a meeting with the chief. I believe he works way up north and his schedule's kind of tough to make happen right now, so we're trying to make that happen with him. And then for Board of Health and Register, the treasurer's report for Keyport, total collected $8,824. Total for Union Beach is $2,208. For anyone with outstanding dog license, see Donna and Borough Hall. That is it.
Great, thanks. Councilmember Becker, your hand?
I'm remiss, I actually forgot to also mention that Mr. Al Litwack from the Harbor Commission is here to answer any questions about bylaws. He can talk during the second public session. That's it, sorry, I didn't write it down.
Thank you. Okay, regarding the library, we had our Board of Trustees meeting on Thursday. A couple weeks prior to that, I was able to meet with their new employee who is considered their access navigator. We were one of the municipalities that was selected to be part of that initiative in the state of New Jersey. They offer various different incentives for the residents. They could help with computer training, or if you need job search, hunting, or all different categories. So I definitely encourage everyone to hop on their social media page or their website to learn more about that. They'll be, the Access Navigator will be there every Thursday through, I believe, September. They are purchasing, what they have proposals in to the board for the new furniture that would be multifunctional, so they would be similar to Dropbox and a checkout desk all at the same time. So I think that was all custom created, and Jay, I believe, we're working on whether the QPA guidelines fall under that theme.
Yes, I've
You're working on
had
that.
discussions with the library director.
Okay, thank you. And the exciting news is that they reopened to the public yesterday, so now you can go back into the library for any of the services that they offer. So long Omicron, thank goodness, we're starting to open everything up. I also had a meeting here in Borough Hall about a week and a half ago with the Keyport Fire Department Board of Chiefs, the chair, the fair chair, and the fair vice chair, along with Trevor, Jay Delaney, Councilmember Davidson, and Pepperoni, regarding the issue of the osprey nest. And it was concluded that it's really a public safety issue, and if it sometimes falls under the guise of a public safety issue, you could put in a deprivation application to the state to see if they'll allow you to remove it as opposed to have to move it. So that application has been filed, so we're waiting for a response from them. Correct, Trevor?
Correct.
Attended the KBBC meeting last week, attended the Bayshore Mayor's meeting. The Mayor's Wellness Campaign Committee will be meeting probably the first week of March. I'm excited that for the Veterans Award that we received. New Jersey League of Municipalities worked in conjunction with Department of Veteran Affairs, and Keyport was selected as the first municipality to put a quote for their next edition of the New Jersey League of Municipalities magazine. And we hope to meet in the month of March for the Veterans Initiative as a committee, and also the Cultural Civic will hopefully meet soon. Should also be noted that we're all aware that a letter went out from the Keyport School District that was or wasn't well received by some, especially in adjoining municipalities in the Bay Shore. We do have a collaboration set up with the school board for the last several years. However, that was not brought forward to us in advance. But I do commend Chief Torres for working with them to see whatever we can do to make that meeting smooth meeting next week, and hopefully everyone comes. As we all know, it's a hot topic. It's been a hot topic for 25 years. I just hope that everyone can also continue to be mindful that children are on social media as well, so commentary should be kept respectful because they're reading these comments as well. So thank you, Chief Torres, for jumping in and assisting to make sure that that meeting goes well next week. And with that, that's kind of my combined committee report and my mayor's update. Before we move to the public, which will only be for resolutions and communications, I've been requesting that we table R 2022-51 since we do not have the answer back from the application that was filed. In regards to 2272, okay, can you just give an update on that one, and are we confirming that everything on that is technically complete and that nothing on Main Street is part of that?
Yes, this is for the final payment and closeout change order for what has been identified as the 2019 Road Improvement Program that was awarded to Esposito Construction. This does reflect a reduction in the overall contract price. I would defer to the borough engineer to provide any specifics as far as the streets that were included with this project.
Are you available to do that?
Yes, Mayor. The streets that were included in this contract were Main Street, Main Street, Hurley, and Warren Street. And we did have a final inspection with the DOT. The DOT performed their inspection and closed out the project. In order to get our remaining money from the DOT, we need to close out the contract. They also completed our punch list over about a year. Took a while for them to get that done, but we did follow up with them several times to get that complete, and they did complete it, I think, in November.
Just for clarification on the Main Street part, is that from Maple North to West Front, or is that Maple to
From Maple to 36.
Okay, so I personally am not thrilled with us paying that out yet then, because we're still having significant water issues on all of the newly installed accessible corner ramps. So until that's rectified, is anyone else seeing all of the pooling water that's a significant issue along that area? I mean, I don't know how we can continue to. Is anyone else having any commentary on that? Does anyone else agree that we should hold that until that's rectified, or?
I would like to hold that if possible to see how they can resolve that before we issue final payment.
Because I can report there were a couple issues out there with broken water service at the Verizon building. DPW was out there twice to repair that. I think the second repair was about 2 weeks ago. So there was a lot of water that was coming up through the road as a result of that water service break. I did drive by there today actually, and I did not notice any water on the Verizon side of the street. There's also a sump pump that's associated with the church on the corner there. The sump pump's actually backed by Butler Street. And I think a lot of the water that collects on that side of the street is from the sump pump at the church. There's also another sump pump that is located, I'm not sure of the address, but it's about the middle of the block. They also contribute water to the streets. I think a lot of the ponding water that is a result of in the curb ramps is actually due to these sump pumps, and which what was a broken water service, which has since been completed.
Okay, so I'm gonna defer now back to you, Jay. Are we having anyone address these sub pump issues that are illegal to discharge water from November or December till March?
We will.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask if we can have that addressed, and we'll hold this for another 30 days, so we can just make sure there's no accumulating water on the corners of Pershing, Walling, St. Peter's, or St. George.
Sure.
Thank you.
I have a
That
question.
is actually my request, although I don't have the authority to do that, so just for the record, if you guys are in agreement, I would need those two tabled, but I'm open to hear if there's any others that need to be tabled.
I have a question. Wouldn't we have the same water issues in the summertime if they're dumping into the street?
We will, yes. The only difference
So-
now, obviously, it freezes. But our borough ordinance, I believe, is November 15th to March 31st for the sump pumps to be disconnected from the public right away.
I guess my point is, if the sub pump is surging that much, there might be, then that's just gonna be an ongoing issue. Even in the summertime, if we have excessive rain, it's gonna flood. I guess that's my point.
Okay, but the sub pump is technically a code issue and a safety issue versus a contractual issue, right? So, but if the water is pooling, and so we can just monitor it after if we have another significant storm, I just think I just don't think we're ready to close that out. Jay, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, we'll hold that for 30 days and review both of the items that have been raised.
Thank you. Any other commentary on consent or resolution, consent agenda? Yes, Councilman Davidson?
On our 2022-77, I believe last year we had something put in place where the camp would carry out their garbage. So can we just, whatever we put in our writing for them, can we make sure that's included in there again?
I believe, Councilwoman, that's in the agreement.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I apologize. Thank you.
I remembered that issue when I was reading it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. I was looking for a nice picture. I apologize. Thank you.
Any other comments from Councilman McNamara?
Also on that same one, did they use, was it Benjamin Terry they used last year, or it's Cedar Street? I'm just, for clarification, just because we're hoping to also do some mini camps, right, and use the water, so I just want to know for sure. I had thought, I guess, that they used Benjamin Terry last
I
year.
thought I remember Benjamin Terry's one.
Yeah, that was my recollection.
So I just don't want confusion when we're planning things, that they put Cedar Street on an application but mean Benjamin Terry.
Actually, on their application, they also put Cedar Creek.
Yeah, Cedar Creek.
The application for Cedar Street, but I've never been there and actually seen which park they use.
Okay, so in the approval, can we just, when we notify them, if it is passed this evening, can we just stress that there is a difference between the two parks and that they need to utilize?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just don't want us all, like, going to the same place at the same time. And then I have just two payment of bills questions. So I'll ask this one, Jay, every time that I see it until we get our delivery. The high-pressure jet clean line, we wouldn't have to pay for that if we had our jet thing, right?
It's been
Our jetter,
the
that we're
jetter-
still waiting for?
Our jetter was delivered on Friday, on Thursday last week.
That's a nice update, okay. But now we have to train people? What's the next step? We
Is
have
there a
to train
ribbon cutting for it?
The ribbon has been cut.
No.
So what's the next step with that, so that I don't keep seeing, payments?
It's been placed into service. Actually, I have a meeting tomorrow morning on Public Works, so I'll be able to provide a more thorough update on where that is in terms of actual being placed in service. But my understanding is it was delivered, training took place, so I'll know more as of tomorrow.
Oh, awesome. That makes me really happy, thank you. And then, this other one, Scenic View Landscaping, remove the wood fence, $3,900. I would have done that.
I had the same question, but,
Where was that wood fence?
Yeah, it's actually, that reflects the first line of the proposal. There were several components to it. The sum and total of this is that this was work for stormwater drainage, clean out of existing outfall that drains Atlantic Street in the vicinity of the apartment complex.
Okay.
So it was not, the full scope of work was more than just remove the fence.
All right.
And it was done with permits according, even though there's false rumor out there that, someone else took care of all this without permits, we did have permits to begin dredging that whole area.
That's correct.
Okay. That's it for me, thank you.
If there's no other, commentary, do I have a motion to table, 2251 and 2272?
Motion.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Davidson.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
Councilmember Aronio.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can have a motion to open to the public for the remaining items on the consent agenda and communications.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or no? Mr. Walker?
George Wallen, 54 Second Street. On 2022-51, you're tabling that for what reason?
We're waiting to hear back on the permit that we submitted to the, DEP.
Who submitted the permit?
Trevor?
Well, that you're authorizing tonight for the permit to be,
No, we're not, we're tabling that.
well, how did the permit go out without this being done?
It's a different type of permit, sir.
Did we have one for that?
No.
How did it happen then?
This section is for stuff that's not been tabled, sir. So do you have any questions on stuff that's not tabled?
No, I'm asking how did the permit get filed without it being on an agenda?
It doesn't need to be, sir.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Do you have any
Attorney?
questions about anything that's on the agenda that's
Yeah,
remaining?
that's on the agenda,
It's not, it's been tabled, sir.
regardless.
Okay. Do you have, next, any other members of the public?
You're ridiculous, you really are. 2278, how much is the salary?
The salary provides for, the resolution provides for a starting salary on an hourly basis of $18 an hour.
18?
Yes.
Not 25?
No.
Okay. And 2022-80, how much is the salary for the recycling coordinator?
$2,500 on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Vecchio?
Oh, I got one more question, I'm sorry, Larry. Jed, you guys said you had a meeting with the fire department?
The Board of Chiefs.
The Board of Chiefs, all right. Did you find anything out about the chief's car?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Lawrence Vecchio, 55 West Front Street, Keyport. Just
Larry, can you, because it goes into the recording tonight, can you just come to the microphone, please?
Lawrence Vecchio, 55 West Front Street, Keyport. Question on who were the professionals appointed to the zoning board?
Our attorney is Mark Lexstein, and the engineers and the planners were T&M.
Does anybody ever wonder why nothing gets built in Keyport? Does anybody ever have any concern about what, seriously, how any project?
Larry, that would be for the second public portion. That's not on part of the.
Well, if anybody wants to know, I'll let you know. Second, with regard to the business district, the business community would like to express their disappointment in last week's
Mr. Vecchio,
resolution.
that's not on the agenda.
And
It's
that
part of the
our
agenda.
the KBPC was in your comments.
It is not on the consent agenda.
The fact that we,
You will be able to
Opposed.
speak at the public at the second part. Mr. Rowland?
It does pertain to both resolutions that have been tabled. John Merle at 34 Broad Street, Keyport. The first one, Resolution 2251, just a question I brought up at the last meeting. Were you able to ask Jersey Central Power and Light?
We're not commenting on that resolution, this evening, it's been tabled.
Okay. Esposito, a resolution, does that include Cornish Street? There was a little section of Cornish Street.
No.
No?
That's a different contract.
Same contract?
Different contract.
It is. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lane?
Do the council members agree with this re-engineering of the agenda of this meeting so the public can't give any input? Is that really your position?
Unbelievable.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, cover your,
I mean,
do nothing administration.
there's so many things.
Mr. Lane,
That
do you
are
have anything
control.
about the consent agenda?
Yes, I'm talking about the agenda.
No, you're not. The
I am
items on
talking about the
consent
agenda.
It's items listed on the consent agenda, Mr. Lane.
That's what I'm talking about, the way you shut the meeting down.
No, you can say as you wish, but that is not accurate.
You have shut the meeting
No,
down.
we haven't.
You have.
No.
And the second item is for a handicapped person, the inability to get the resolutions on the internet prior to the meeting is a real handicap. Now, the resolution 2022-75, the environmental study at the park. What triggered the need for that?
Mayor, would you like me to address that? The borough's in receipt of 2 grants for improvements to the recreation facilities there. And both of the grants require, well, actually, the Monmouth County grant requires an environmental assessment prior to receipt of that grant funding.
The resolution 2022-80 on recycling coordinator. What triggered that change from Ms. Parcell, who was the recycling coordinator?
It's a personnel
And had
matter.
been doing it for years.
It's a personnel matter.
The personnel. The resolution on the Osprey, am I to understand, and I just want to make sure I understood what was stated, that because it was a issue with safety, we can shut the nest down, which is fantastic. But do we have to relocate it?
That's what we're waiting to hear back, sir. We put in a permit to remove it, not relocate it.
So there's no delineation at this point in time where it's going to be relocated to?
Not if we don't have to relocate it.
Well, I'm just trying to understand whether the
Mr.
memo,
Lee, can you move this?
the memo that was,
Mr. Lee,
what?
we're not talking about that right now.
Yes, we have shut down public input.
No, you haven't.
You have shut down
That's
public
your
input.
opinion, Mr. Lane. Trust me, we've had enough of your input already on it. Do you have any other items on the
Whoa.
consent agenda?
Yes, I do.
Great.
And on letter, one of the letters.
Yeah, that's the roof. That's 160.
Letter number 2 on the Clean Ocean cleanup. And I think it was mentioned that in addition to Clean Ocean cleanup, there will be a cleanup by Save the Coast Wildlife, and that's scheduled for February 27th. Do they need any approvals from council for that?
We found out about it after they scheduled it, so Jay, what did we end up communicating with them?
The information had been provided to the Environmental Commission, and we've just received from the Environmental Commission that forwarded information. So there is no approval that's been granted, nor has there been an approval requested.
And they do not need any of our services?
There have been no requests for services.
So they're, whatever they collect, they're gonna remove themselves?
That's what it appears to be.
That's what their notice says. But they don't, do they have any insurance issues whenever somebody uses the park?
These are all of our questions. Apparently, this was communicated in the last calendar year that was not communicated to the governing body, this current governing body, so we found out about it as you did.
Under new business, what happened with the liquor license place-to-place transfer? And the state requirement for a resolution from this borough, and I don't see a resolution from this borough on the agenda for that transfer.
We'll answer that during the next public portion.
Pardon?
We'll answer that during the public portion.
Well, you limit the public portion to 5 minutes per person, so you really shut it down. The unfinished business, the issue with cottage food industry. That is in absolute not in alignment with our land use requirements. And I can state,
Mr. Lane, this public portion is for resolutions and communications only.
you shut it down.
That's your opinion.
You shut it down.
No.
Council, do you agree with this? Really?
I actually have a question. I was not made aware that we were changing the order of the agenda. Is there a reason why we changed it?
Yes, so that we can actually get through the agenda.
Over the years, we've brought multiple valuable inputs to this council,
Understood?
and you shut it down.
We have not.
You have.
That's your opinion, Mr. Lane.
You have shut
It's
it
your
down.
opinion.
And the other unfinished business item was the flood damage prevention ordinance. I expected that would have been introduced tonight. In light of the schedule that it's got to be done, and it's got to be an ordinance, and the ordinance could have a problem, and you have to...
That is not on the agenda either.
I know, and
So you
that
have to
really
ask them very
impacts
public.
me, because if, just like car insurance, I have to have an agreement with the policy
Understood.
provider.
There's a time on the agenda that you can ask that, and it is not now.
Well, I got more than 5 minutes worth of stuff.
Well, then you can carry it to the next meeting.
No, I can't.
You will. Any other members of the public? Mr. Strauss?
Jack Straub, 235 Main Street. Communications, we're allowed to talk about communications. Under communications, receive and file, report of audit on the financial statements of Keyport Public Library. Where is that available for the public to see? There was no, the addendums, whatever you call it, the packet for, no, but online, for the public to see.
Well, we post the audit itself separately, like under financial cases.
Is there a reason everything wasn't posted for the meeting ahead of time?
Because we're back open to the public.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
We post the full packet when we're closed to the public, so.
That's not
there's
true.
no bu-
That's not true. We went through all of this back in the fall. When you reopened and went to the book, we had this discussion. Numerous members of the public said, if you can put it online, when you're doing Zoom, why can't you still?
If we
And
had.
at that time, let me finish, and at that time, you reversed and you decided to put it back online. So it was online while you were in session.
And we had extra staff on at that point. We are shorthanded now, and it's extra work to do that, and it's not happening at this point in time. If we reconsider in the future, we will.
Whose fault is it that you're short-staffed? Don't you have replacements? Isn't it the job of the administration when you have shortfalls that you
Mr.
go
Stroud,
ahead and
do you
get
have any questions
replacements?
on communications?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any further questions on?
You didn't answer the question.
I don't need to answer that question.
Everybody here is okay with this. This is ridiculous.
Any other members of the public? Have a motion to close to the public?
Motion.
Second. All in favor? It is the pleasure of the council, is there an approval to approve consent agenda items R 22-70 and R 22-71, and then R 2273 R 2283?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Davidson.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
Councilmember Councilmember Aranio.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have public hearing about ordinances, ordinance number 2022-2, amending personnel residency requirements. Can you please read that by title, Michelle?
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, amending Chapter 10 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Keyport entitled Personnel at Section 10-4 Residency Requirements.
Can I have a motion open to the public?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any members of the public have any questions regarding ordinance 2022-2? Mr. Cox?
Jack Straub, 235 Main Street. Can anyone explain what it is?
And Mr. Delaney?
Yes, this ordinance removes the residency requirements from the Borough Code that requires it for employment with the borough.
For things like code enforcement and things like that?
Yeah, for all positions. All positions that are not either required to be residency or that are statutorily exempt from residency requirements.
But not elected officials?
That's correct, not elected.
Okay.
That's done by statutory, so that's statutory is still in there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other members of the public? Seeing none, there is none, can I have a motion to close?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-2?
Motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Davidson.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
Councilmember Aranio.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion authorizing the clerk to publish the ordinance as adopted.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any no or abstain? Ordinance 2022-3, amending general licensing and business regulations for sidewalk cafe and restaurants. Can you please read it by title?
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, amending Chapter 5 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Keyport entitled General Licensing and Business Regulations at Section 5-15 Sidewalk Cafes and Restaurants.
Thank you. Is there a motion to open to the public?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any no or abstain? Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on ordinance number 2022-3? Mr. Scott?
Jack Straub, 225 Main Street. Sorry, I have to do this again, Mr. Delaney, but could you explain what this is?
Yes, this ordinance revises the existing regulations and the process for approving sidewalk cafes within the borough. This provides a streamlined process that is administered through the administrative process, no longer requires a approval or presentation before the governing body. It provides standards for the approval, also cleans up some ambiguities as far as the calendar timeframes when these sidewalk cafes are permitted.
Okay, so it's mostly paperwork administration. It's not expanding the size or the space or how much you go into the street or anything like that?
No, essentially it fine tunes the existing regulations, but as I said, streamlines the process for the application and approval.
And that's all online now? The new, once it's passed, it'll all be online?
Once it's passed, the forms and applications will be available online.
All right, thank you.
Any other members of the public? Seeing that there is none, our motion to close to the public.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any commentary, and if from the governing body, if not, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 2022-3?
Motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Davidson.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
Councilmember Aranio.
Yes.
Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to authorize the clerk to publish ordinance as adopted?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any no or abstain? we have introduction of ordinances, ordinance right-of-way, vacation of a portion of Washington Street. Michelle, can you please read that by title?
This is an ordinance of the Borough of Keyport, County of Monmouth, New Jersey, vacating a portion of the right-of-way of Washington Street within the Borough of Keyport as set forth therein.
Have a motion to introduce?
Motion. Second.
Roll call, please. Unless there's commentary before we roll call. Is there any questions on it? Roll call, sorry.
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Davidson.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
Councilmember Arania.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion authorizing the clerk to publish the ordinance as introduced by the Asbury Park Press for public hearing?
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No or abstained. Communications by consent, we have items number 1 through 9 for approval, and items 10 and 11 for receipt and file. Is there any commentary by the governing body before we ask for motion?
I have a question.
Councilman Marino?
On number 1, the change of work status from full-time to part-time, are we getting somebody to fill his position since he's only going to part-time?
We are, and one of the resolutions, specifically number 82, authorizes us to initiate, or authorize me to initiate the hiring process to fill that full-time position.
Councilmember McDermott, you have anything on
Yes.
that?
Communication number 5. So just so for everyone to understand, this is something we've done every year, correct? The borough? And also the flyer that needs to be updated, so who's gonna update that for the ad?
The administration does that.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
it'll be taken care of upstairs. We do it, we have done it every year, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that.
Mhm.
That's it.
Councilmember McDermott?
I'm really excited about item number 8. I have a tire sitting on the side of my house that I've been too lazy to bring to Tinton Falls. I'm sure I'm not the only one, so I guess for me, I'm really curious, do we have any plan on how we can really get the word out about this pickup? I think this is huge. I mean, so, just a thought.
Jay, what's the plan to get this out? Or is this the one that's going to be going door to door?
Yes, this is a program that is conducted by the Monmouth County Mosquito Control Commission. Part of the program includes the standard avenues for public information. We will obviously post it and distribute it, but they have personnel that will distribute flyers or leaflets regarding this before or during the time frame, which is scheduled for, I believe it's March 1 to April 15.
All right, that's good. I just wasn't sure if they were gonna do it, or if they were expecting us. I saw they'd have the door hanger thing, so they're gonna handle it.
They're doing that,
Awesome.
and this is a curbside pickup arrangement.
So sweet.
But we're going to circulate this on social media and the website too.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other commentary on communications? If not, is there a motion to approve 1 through 9 and to receive and file 10 and 11?
Motion. Second.
Have a roll call, please, Michelle?
Councilmember Pacheco.
Yes.
Councilmember McDermott.
Yes.
Councilmember Davidson.
Yes.
Councilmember McNamara.
Yes.
Councilmember Arania.
Yes.
And Councilmember Pepperoni.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have reports. Municipal Clerk's Report for January 2022. Tax Order Sewer Collector's Report for January 2022. Board of Health Treasurer's Report for January 2022. Building Department Monthly Report for January 2022. Municipal Court Monthly Report for January 2022. Parking Advisory Committee Preliminary Report, February 1st, 2022. KFD Public Relations Public Information Report, January through February 2022. Before I ask for a motion, I just want to comment on the committee and Mr. Kelsey's work. I haven't finished reading through the whole thing, but I do appreciate the detail that you've put into it.
Thank you.
So thank you. Is there a motion to?
Can I ask a quick question? In the fire department, piece, it mentions the May 7th inspection. Do we know if we've actually started that process, like, getting it on a calendar?
They did not not putting an official.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a motion to?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any no or abstain? New business, any members of the governing body? Unfinished business? Status updates, we'll start with Chief Torres.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to announce that an arrest was made by the Keyport Detective Bureau on a fraud and theft of over $9,000. R. Lombard Torres, with a Z, no relation, was arrested and charged with 2C20-4 theft and various criminal fraud charges. This arrest and interview helped solve fraud cases in multiple jurisdictions, including the Inspector General. Who, if you don't know, he oversees Social Security frauds and any major cases with Social Security. It ended up solving over $23,000 worth of bail fraud cases. So it was a real good arrest made, and it really helped out not only just Keyport residents, but it helped out our county and state. A terroristic threat that went out on social media was investigated. A juvenile was arrested and charges are pending in juvenile court. Burglary of a Keyport residence was closed by arrest. L. Olivia was arrested and charged with 2C18-2 and 2C20-3 burglary and theft. They investigated 3 sexual assaults. They were closed and by investigation. We are beginning LEAD next Friday, and we're also planning this year for a 10-week high school program as well. Please continue to watch our Facebook page for updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. London?
Just briefly, at the last council meeting, I think maybe 1 or 2 council members had asked questions regarding the cottage food issue and whether or not there would be any type of notification coming from the applicant or either the State Department that they were opening up a cottage food business. I checked the regulations once again, and unfortunately there is no provision in either direction requiring the State Department or the applicant to provide notice to the borough. So the only way that the borough would actually know is if you had a specific requirement that they register with you or either get a license of some sort. That requirement was in the legislation that unfortunately did not pass. It was a pocket veto. The governor just chose not to take any action on it. So you still have the opportunity, if you so desire, to do so. As I mentioned at the last meeting, none of the municipalities in Monmouth County that I had reviewed have that requirement, but that does not mean you cannot have one. The application process in order to get the permit from the state is rather detailed, and the person has to get certified, go through a class, get an actual certification that they must have before they get a permit. So it's not just a simple process. They want to make sure that the people who are operating the home food business is doing it correctly. And as I mentioned at the last meeting, it continues to be my opinion that operating a cottage food business is not a prohibited use of the borough's zoning. I respectfully disagree with the other opinion, primarily because, in my opinion, the business is not a retail establishment. Looking through the various laws and sections, Section 23-2 of the borough's municipal code, which regulates matters dealing with retail food establishments, adopts the New Jersey State Sanitary Code, Chapter 24, Sanitation in Retail Food Establishments and Food and Beverage Vending Machines, NJAC 8:24-1, and that section specifically provides that the definition of a retail food establishment does not include kitchen in a private home that produces food that is non-TCS, that is foods that are not time or temperature controlled for safety, and is prepared and sold or otherwise relinquished to the consumer in accordance with the cottage food operator permit. Rather, again, in my opinion, a cottage food operation is a home operation, and as such is a permitted accessory use in the borough's residential districts in accordance with section 25-1-5.2, section 25-1-6.2, section 25-1-7.2. And again, I just respectfully disagree with the opinion. That's what the law is all about. People have differing opinions and interpretations of the law, but this is my opinion.
Does anyone from the governing body have questions on that? So Leslie?
I know the last meeting, Councilman McNamara brought up a point about that we don't regulate other home businesses as well. And I will be fully transparent. I've heard, when I was in my first 2 years, I've heard a lot of complaints about if it's a home business, how do we, if they have a lot of traffic or they start using it for business coming in and out the door. I guess my point is, if we don't have a policy and procedure for any home business, we may, I don't know if identifying this directly, it's kind of a little bit more, I don't want to I kind of want to make it fair across, because I do want to honor the individuals who have home businesses, but I think we have to find a way to monitor, at least regulate or acknowledge them. Because I do think we've had some issues with neighbors, whether it's commercial vehicles parked in the street, that kind of thing. I don't know, maybe there's some way that we can just do a registry or change the ordinance to just at least acknowledge when we have a home business. And this may allow us to just leverage that.
Then what about other home businesses?
No, all of them. I mean any home business.
I don't know if you can do that.
Have a general ordinance that would cover all home businesses.
Just to get it registered with the borough. Just a simple application. That's it.
I can check into that.
I mean, does that go as far as consulting? So if you're like a Party Light or Pampered Chef consultant, you're gonna have to, I'm not gonna tell you can't ask a lawyer to look into it, but just think about the amount of work that's going to add to our staff.
And there's a specific listing of types of businesses that are allowed as a home occupation. So it is a limited grouping of folks that fall into that definition. But if you register or regulate for one, do you have to necessarily do it for another?
That's my concern, is we're not doing it for any of them.
Someone might claim, well, how come you're not doing it for this business and picking on my business?
Just out of curiosity, what is the process, so if my neighbor has a home business and there's an exorbitant amount of traffic coming in and out of their home, where does that complaint go?
Real loud.
Yeah, typically it's a zoning regulation, and the allowance, and I don't know without having the language in front of me as to what our ordinance provides, but there's a fairly tight definition of home occupations and business use of residences. So, and in general, what would really be akin to a retail use where there is members of the public visiting the home, that is specifically prohibited in most home occupation regulations. So it would be a zoning violation that would be enforced through the zoning office.
So the retail side is not allowed with this cottage inn, according to our ordinance.
Well, I don't have it in front of me, and while it's related, it's somewhat outside the parameters of the discussion that have taken place so far regarding the cottage foods. But if you'd like, we could certainly take a closer look at that, and/or through the committee, look at that aspect of our zoning regulations.
Jay, do you have any updates?
Just one follow-up, Mayor. At the last meeting, there was, in conjunction with the discussion regarding the authorization for the engineer to proceed with the submission of, or approving a proposal for aspects that were related to obtaining the permit as well as associated services regarding the relocation of the Osprey. There was some question and statements made regarding the use of the borough's Recreation Bayfront Improvement Trust for the use of those funds. I had an opportunity to speak with the individual that was referenced, Jessica Patterson at the Green Acres program, and I did receive a follow-up email from her where she's indicated that she checked with her bureau chief, and they agree that the soft costs for an application for maintenance on a park, in this case light fixture improvements and relocating an osprey nest, are acceptable to come out of the user fee fund. As discussed, this fund can only be used for the operation, maintenance, or capital expenses related to the park or for the borough's recreation program. So we did follow that up, and that is an approved and acceptable use of the fees that are generated from the parks.
Which hopefully we will not have to use at all, any fees. But thank you for following up on that. Trevor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple items. As far as the TAP project, we did receive the go-ahead from the DOT to have our public information session. Just have to get the county on board with that, so as soon as I hear back from the county, I'll discuss with Mr. Delaney how we want to set that up, whether it's going to be in person or a virtual meeting, and where we want to have it. So I'll follow up with Jay on that. I'll also be following up with the county on their traffic report for the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on all of county roadways through the town. They were preparing a report for that, and I haven't seen it yet. Also with that report is the four-way stops at several locations, the no passing zones on First Street, and the Raritan and Main drainage issue. So Jen and I met with them, I believe it was back in early December. They said they're working on it. I'll follow up with them and hopefully get an answer when we can anticipate those reports. And lastly, for the county bridge project, the bridge that goes into Union Beach on First Street, the county did close the intersection of Walnut and First Street down for the remainder of the project. That project is supposed to be completed hopefully by the end of April, not beginning of May. I believe their contract is done by Memorial Day. So that, just want to give everyone a notice that that intersection will be closed for the remainder of the project.
You said that's end of April?
Right now, end of April, beginning of May is our anticipated completion date.
So there's been new traffic patterns and no parking, that will be those no parking areas, or is that just to implement the new direction of travel today, or is that going to remain through the completion of the project?
I'm not sure about the parking restrictions. I know the detour was previously set up, and initially the county was going to shut that intersection down for the entire project duration. But then at the beginning of the project, we discussed with them to keep it open until they had to shut it down. That time has come now, since they're going to be working at that intersection. So I know the detour was in place. I'm not aware of the parking restrictions, so I can definitely follow up with the county engineer's office on that and see what the parking restrictions will be.
Okay, maybe I'm misspeaking then. Maybe if you could just communicate with Chief Torres, because there were ballards put up with no parking signs on some of Cedar Street last night. So
On Cedar Street?
I thought it was in conjunction with that starting at the same time. So if it's not, then maybe it's something different. So if you could just, I had a resident inquiry, so if you could just communicate together. Bless you. Okay. Sorry, were you done or?
That's it. Thank you.
Any questions for Charlie?
Regarding the construction at that bridge, there was a lot of garbage or not cleanup that was done by the county or whoever that was. Because I think there's two different projects going on in there. There's private and then there's the county. Has that been addressed or communicated out to them to maintain and clean the area?
Yes, so I did get an email from Mr. Delaney, I think that was last week. So I did speak to both the contractor, the county engineer's office, as well as the contractor for the 323 First Street project. Advised them that we weren't happy with the conditions of the site. I know they're both looking at cleaning some stuff up out there. We did also find today there was some garbage dumped there from a bathroom renovation on the side of the street. So we actually took care of that today. They put that into the dumpster on the property. But yes, I did reach out to both of them, so hopefully going forward it'll be a much cleaner site.
And just, if you could just give me feedback, or I'll work with Jay, maybe directly to you, just the mechanics of what we need for the Cedar Street, for the fencing, the dunes and stuff, for
Sure.
us to order stuff, that's all.
Thank you. I have a motion to open to the public for about 5 minutes max per person.
Motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
have a couple of handouts that I got passed out, I'll give them to you in a second. George Wallingford, 52nd Street. The fire department's allowed to have a permit for fireworks. Can private residents have that also?
There is a fireworks permit process, I believe, yes.
There is.
Well, it depends, sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, go ahead.
It depends on what the new state laws have passed, right? So there's all different types of firework categories now according as of like in 2019. So it depends, I think, how far. If they go in the air, it would go through the fire bureau's office.
Okay, is there a time frame on that too?
My guess would be that it would fall under the noise ordinance.
No, I mean the time frame. Do you apply 6 months ahead, 2 months ahead?
Oh, that
Or you don't know that?
I'm not familiar.
Okay, thank you very much. You guys would like to share all right?
Are you having commentary on what you're handing out, or
No.
are you done, Mr.?
Pardon me?
Are you gonna have further commentary on what you're handing
No,
out?
I said thank you very much.
Okay, wasn't sure if you.
That's all right.
Mr. Bethany?
You can share. Yep. Something Sonny would say.
Lawrence Vecchio, 55 West Front Street, Keyport. Just to comment back to the zoning board, any town that's successful in redeveloping or developing anything, it starts at the top. So don't be pushing off the planning board's appointments to the planning board. Everybody in this room is responsible for what happens to this town. So I really think you need to look at why something hasn't been built in this town for a long time. Look at our neighboring towns and what's going on. And we are like dead stop. There's a reason for it. And if you don't wake up and pay attention, it starts at the top. Second, with regard to the business district, as the business community, we'd like to express our disappointment in your action last week. On the record, our attorneys have advised us that Lori and Delia were in a conflict of interest, and we will be sending additional information. The borough's already got information. I was surprised it wasn't on the agenda here tonight. And third, looking at recent audits of your other municipal organizations, I'm waiting for you to appoint committees for them. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to comment to your commentary about building. If you look up the street right here on West Front Street, you'll see PRC is breaking ground, and 75 Manchester, because we had community meetings, which have never been done in that fashion in the Borough of Keyport in the history, that went through a planning board process within one meeting. So you should probably make that in your record.
Well, if you really want proof what PRC thinks of working in this town, you should ask them. They're not happy. And I can't get people to come to this town to do anything.
Mr. Merlin?
John Morella, 34 Broad Street, Keyport. I asked George to hand those out. Tomorrow we gotta celebrate in Keyport. 14 years since they closed the doors of 162 2nd Street. For the record, you can look at the water when the water was shut off. 14 years ago. It's when they closed the doors. Now, if you think this property for 14 years, if that was next to your house, how would you like it? I don't think you'd like it at all. And for any council member to say, we follow proper procedures, and, you know, you think this is good, I could care less if they pay their fines, I could care less if they have a lien on their property. The bottom line is, this sucks for our community. This is a disgrace. 14 years, I don't blame anyone here. I go back 14 years. So if that was me, I blame myself. I'm not afraid to blame myself, but for 14 years, okay, I have an outstanding 311, as per your request, you asked me to do it. 10 months ago, as of 9 o'clock this morning, the status is still open. I've not gotten an answer. What transpired? Why this property hasn't been cleaned up? Why they haven't been asked to knock it down? This is unsafe, okay? This is a fire. Within 1,000 feet, we have hydrants that are out of service. You have a firehouse next door and all residential homes. This is a death trap, in my opinion, and it's wrong. It should be taken down immediately. The borough should enforce it, enforce the laws, and for 14 years, we haven't. My opinion only. As far as Mr. Delaney saying he spoke with Jessica Patterson, so did I, so she must have had a change of heart, because I have an email saying that the money shouldn't have been used from the Brit account, and I'll share that with the council. And Mayor, the last two meetings that I've been to the library, I just was wondering if you brought to the attention to the council, especially the finance chair and the CFO, the concerns of the librarian of the payment, the fourth quarter payment that they received after December 31st, which had to be moved into capital improvements and couldn't be spent how it's usually spent. Have we passed that on, that information?
Yes, I have just texted with Mr. Delaney, and we're in the process of getting ready to schedule a meeting with them, with the
Okay.
library and the CFO.
Okay. The last and most important thing to council, I really hope, there's two things. You're working on fixing those fire hydrants in town. Pressure was not 100% a couple fires ago, a couple weeks back, I'm sorry, at the fire. And last, First and Walnut, Trevor talked about being closed. Are you aware that we closed that intersection without notifying the residents in that area or the businesses? We just closed it. There was an ad on Facebook or a post on Facebook from the police department. Thank God that went out. Not one business was notified. Now you have the alternate travel is Cedar Street to Pine to the Arrow Marine. Cedar and Pine are light traffic streets. Tractor trailers shouldn't be going down them streets. So we didn't do our due diligence. We didn't notify businesses so they could have prepared for this. Regardless if it's going to be April, May, June, we should have did a better job preparing. Thank you.
Trevor, can you please follow up with the county and find out why that wasn't done if it wasn't?
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Kelsey?
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peter's Place. Did I hear correctly that there's no regulation for home occupations? Was that said in the borough?
Not currently, correct?
No, there's a permit, new regulations are at the state level requiring someone who is interested in having a cottage food business to be regulated. They're regulated at state level.
John told me to give you one.
Okay, but it sounded like in the discussion that it was said we don't have any regulations for home occupations generally. Is that, am I inaccurate in saying that?
I didn't think it was regulations.
I didn't think it was, right,
thought it was you don't have a registration.
registration.
Oh, registration.
Registration
Okay.
process, yeah.
Because we do have an ordinance.
Right, no, yes.
Okay.
But
that's
we
what it
don't
is.
make them register with the borough.
Right, only if they have an employee.
Right,
Yeah.
so whereas that's what part of the commentary with this, food cottage would be, is there was suggestions from the state that perhaps municipalities would wanna have a registry.
Okay.
So I think that's what they're going back and forth about, where other businesses don't have registries, so do we wanna single them out too, about maybe it would be beneficial if, they're picking up goods from the house or not, so.
Okay, just a comment on the rest of the businesses, I'm not familiar with the cottage food industry, but, I had worked on that along with Mike Lane and some others a few years ago, and that's how what we have now came about, and the idea behind that was, somebody's got something quiet going on, and it's not, as you can tell by the ordinance, not readily visible, it's no big deal. And we also don't wanna burden people with having to jump through hoops to conduct a business from home. It's really like American tradition to be able to do something small at your house, so just keep that in mind. Certainly, we don't want people showing up for a store, coming and going in a residential neighborhood. Now, this is something we considered and agree with, but, just keep that in mind when you guys think about this further. So, thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Letter?
Outlet Walks, 50 Walnut Street. I just wanted to bring to your attention, we, at the Harbor Commission, submitted bylaws with the hope that the council would at some point vote to either approve them or to change them. And when that does come up, since I was instrumental in writing them, I'd be glad to answer any questions. All we're trying to do is better define what our role is, what we should be doing and what we shouldn't be doing. There's nothing sinister about it at all. As another subject, on the Walnut Street, First Avenue closure, the redirected traffic, that is a problem. Not only are there 18-wheelers going down there, last week there was a 24-wheeler that had to go over the sidewalks to just make a turn onto Walnut Street. So if something can be done, that would be great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And just for a little extra, if I could just wait 1 second. Councilman McNamara and Pacheco, it's my understanding last year we put the topic on under new business for the bylaws, right? And then we were expecting Mr. Litwack to come back, so do we want to list that under new business again? And then maybe the next meeting?
Yes, please.
Michelle, so if you could circulate the bylaws to the new governing body, we'll just circulate them to everyone and then put it under new business for discussion if you want to come back for the next meeting.
Oh, absolutely. I apologize. I thought if they needed me to represent me to get back here. That was my fault. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, are we okay with that, Michelle? Yes. Rose and Victoria, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Mr. Ning?
Cottage food law, section 824-11, allows me to run a cottage food business and have customers come to my door to pick up the food. And, but the land use requirements, chapter 25:1-5.6, other permitted uses in residential districts, states that no service shall be offered that requires coming to the residence for the service to be performed. Experience with unpermitted homes, businesses. I had next to me on First Street at 53 First Street, a person was running a business on the first floor of the two-family unit. There were people who were parked in my driveway. They would park illegally on First Street. And as Andrew said, we had multiple complaints like that. That's what drove us to write the ordinance that says you cannot have customers come to your house. And the food cottage law definitely says you can have customers come to your house.
Mayor, if I may, but the cottage food law also says you must comply with all local regulations. So under our ordinance, that would not be permitted.
Right, and so I was responding to the attorney. And so it is not permitted to have customers come to your house.
Mr. Lane, can you reread the section? And I think there was something about that applied to unpermitted businesses. The cottage businesses would be permitted through the state, correct? So is that different?
It doesn't say.
I thought you started to say that that law had to do with unpermitted businesses.
The law says no service shall be offered. That requires coming to the residence for the service to be performed. Doesn't say anything about.
There wasn't more to?
May I ask what section you're reading from, sir?
Yes, Mayor, I have the ordinance in front of me. I can read.
25:1-5, other requirements for home occupancy, occupation, item 3 states.
All right, we will take that into advisement. We'll look into that, Mr. Ling.
All right. Second item I want to bring up. I don't know how council keeps track of critical issues in the town. And a couple of years ago, we used to have a borough administrator's report. We need a report that gives us insights as to what's going on. Examples of things that should be covered in this report are Are we gonna make any application for federal infrastructure funding for all the items in the strategic recovery planning report that haven't been executed, and they're critical to the town? I don't, where do we find out whether that is just fading into the ether or it's active? Lots 20 and 21, which were on the agenda months ago, that those lots are in the Rossi, but yet the owner of the Keyport Fishery is paying taxes on it. Where does that get followed up? We have the fact that the landfill, where's the feedback on the schedule? How does the council know what's going on there? How does the public know that? Resolving the inconsistencies that was spoken about, and Ms. Davison, I thank you for giving that input, but it should be still reported in a report. Rebuilding the bulkhead. Is that just in the ether again? Just floating? The issue with the stop signs we heard from Trevor's report update, that's the best news I've heard in a long time. But that's the kind of thing that should be in a report. And because I used to ask about these at every council meeting. And I can see where you're tired and hearing about it, but I'm tired of not getting a report. The NPP floodgates, when are they going to be fixed? How are they going to be fixed? The Division Street flooding, we're just waiting for another good storm. We haven't fixed the outfall pipe problem. And we haven't solved the Division Street flooding. Where is that on the list? I didn't hear any council people report on it. The flood damage prevention ordinance, really can't afford to have that fall through the crack. But where does it get reported on? The really great news on the TAP program, and I'm really looking forward to being able to cross First Street when we get the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs and get some crosswalks painted. But again, where is that on the report? Ownership of the Fireman Park lot. Is that just in the ether? Is it just falling off the table? Where is it being tracked? And, it really is a best management practice to have a monthly status report. And we did have a borough administrator who was very good at doing it. And it was available every month for both the council and the public. I urge you to implement that best practice, get it in place, because I know you don't want to hear me in all these meetings, but the public has the right to know. You can't manage without knowing. Please take the action.
Thank you, Mr. Lane.
Can I respond to the section?
Sure.
I have looked at the section that was cited, and it was one of the sections actually that I did review as part of my analysis, and I read it differently. It says, no services shall be offered that requires clients coming to the residence for the service to be performed. So the key words are for the service to be performed. And in the list of types of businesses that you can't have, having your hair done, having your nails done, a service to be performed. Operating a food business, in my opinion, does not fall into that category. So it was one of the areas that I did look at. And we just have a differing opinion.
So in other words, we can't go and decorate the cupcakes at the person's house, we have to pick them up already complete.
Just pick them, they're ready to be picked up.
Ready to eat.
But the intent was to keep traffic from coming to the house right next to you.
I understand that too.
And if we didn't quite word it correctly, the council needs to act, because that's the intention. Is you really don't want, I'll give you an example, an event venue next door to you. You don't want a bakery next door to you that's attracting 25 customers a day. So take action.
So if anyone wants to move forward with anything on that, if you could please put that together with Jay and Leslie and circulate that. Any other members of the public? Mr. Scott?
Jack Straub, 235 Main Street. Just three quick things. If anyone saw today in the Azure Park Press, there was an article referred to the governor signing into law last month, allowing municipalities to look into open beverage, carrying beverages out of establishments, as we did a couple of years ago with the music festival. Apparently he signed it into law in January, and it's up to municipalities to decide whether or not they want to pass it. Public hearings are required, obviously. So I hope maybe that's something that the council can look into and take up at a future point. There was an article today, which actually, today's article was saying these would be good places for this to happen, and they happened to mention Keyport, mentioned West Front Street and Waterfront Park. But the original article, when the law was signed into law, was, I believe, January 19th. So you can look those up. Secondly, I think Mr. Vecchio mentioned earlier, referring to the KBVC, the audit, the potential conflicts with the committee. The purpose of the committee, from what I understand, was to look into the audit and the audit findings. My question would be, as far as consistency, the borough's audit for 2019 had some findings that needed to be corrected and were not corrected. So you had the same exact audit finding in 2019 and 2020, even though there had been a recommendation and the council had approved a corrective action plan, it wasn't even followed. So it seems to be inconsistent that the borough wants to go ahead and form a committee to investigate KBVC and audit findings when the borough's audit itself had clear violations that weren't even addressed for a full year because they had the same violation 2 years in a row. And the last thing I hate to mention, it's just what happened earlier tonight. It's ridiculous. For the council to sit here, this is not a dictatorship. It shouldn't be. A lot of us are used to the bullying and the intimidation and the false statements. But for the council to listen to the mayor and to see what she did, she went right from the mayor's comments into tabling 2 consent agenda items, skipping over the public portion, then going back to the public portion and saying we couldn't discuss them because they'd been removed. You shouldn't allow that. You're the borough council. You're responsible to the residents of this town. You're not responsible to the mayor. Someone has to do something other than just sitting there silently. I know we're wearing masks, but you can still say something. That was wrong. That was absolutely wrong, and everyone else here agreed with it. And to allow her to continue this bullying is wrong, and it's your responsibility to stop it. Thank you.
Thanks for your opinion. Any other members of the public? Mr. Kelsey?
Andrew Kelsey, 29 St. Peters. I just forgot to mention that I had noticed a inconsistency on the home occupation side of things. The updated ordinance that we had generated said no signs, but I see in the sign section of the borough ordinance is 25-1-17 that it does allow for signs for home occupation. So in the course of things, that's one thing to keep in mind to just correct. That's all.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Have a motion to close?
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Ms. London, we have a closed session.
Yes, we have a resolution for a meeting not open to the public in accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-12, whereas NJSA 10:4-12 provides that a closed session not open to the public may be held for certain specified purposes and authorized by resolution. Whereas it is necessary for the borough to discuss in a session not open to the public matters falling within the attorney-client privilege relating to the subcommittee formed to review the independent auditor's report for Keyport bid pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12B7. Now therefore be it resolved, the mayor and council assembled in public session on February 15th and determined that a closed session not open to the public shall be held for the stated purpose. No action is anticipated to be taken.
Is there any action anticipated to be taken afterwards?
No.
So that's after we come out of closed, we'll most likely just be going into adjournment?
Yes, it's for purpose of attorney-client privilege.
Thank you. Have a motion to